La versión en español de este video la puedes encontrar en el link que aparece en la tarjeta de la esquina superior derecha de la pantalla, en la descripción del video y en el primer comentario.
Those who have read the Third Secret of Fatima have said that it contains much more than what was revealed by the Vatican in 2000. Those who have dedicated themselves to studying it in depth have concluded that there is an additional sheet that was kept secret. Furthermore, researchers, such as Antonio Socci, studied the topic to debunk rumors that the text revealed in 2000 was incomplete, but ended up firmly believing that there is something else that the Vatican didn't publish. In this video, we will talk about the revelations made by Malachi Martin about the content of the Third Secret of Fatima, which he read in 1960, thanks to Pope John XXIII. Before starting, we want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, our newsletter, and our Telegram channel. Like this video and share it with your friends. And on the screen, you will see how to collaborate with our mission through Patreon. Your support allows us to continue. All links are in the video description. Malachi Martin was a Jesuit priest born in Ballylongford, Ireland, in 1920. As a paleographer, he dedicated himself to studying ancient documents from biblical times. He earned 3 doctorates, was fluent in 8 languages, and was an expert in Semitic writing since Abraham's times. He was definitely a top-notch scholar. He was a highly respected exorcist, and at age 30, he became a professor at the Pontifical Biblical Institute. He was transferred to Rome because John XXIII was looking for someone with extensive contacts with Muslims and Jews. There, he became an assistant to Cardinal B and an active participant in the Second Vatican Council. It was rumored that due to his recognized intelligence, he was being prepared to join the ruling elite of the Catholic Church. But at some point, Father Martin seemed to have become disillusioned with the leadership of the Church, particularly the Jesuit order. In 1964, almost at the end of the council, he requested to be released from vows and live independently. In his own words, he was driven by his conclusion that many within the Church, particularly in his order, were more interested in power than in saving souls. Later, he would denounce the Jesuits for allying themselves with Marxists, especially in Central and South America. He was referring to liberation theology. In 1965, he moved to New York, where he worked as a dishwasher and taxi driver, but would soon establish himself as a writer. He published 17 successful books about fictional stories. Later, he would say that 90% had happened, but they were disguised. His writings are prophetic, especially when Swept House, a Vatican novel. The plot centers on a pope who is pressured to resign, to put in his place a pope who makes liberal changes. He died of an intracerebral hemorrhage caused by a fall. In a documentary, it was said that when Father Martin entered the hospital, he claimed to have been pushed from the stool he was standing on by a demonic force. Father Martin was the private secretary of Cardinal Augustine B. from 1958 to 1964, which was the time of the Second Vatican Council. He met those responsible for the changes that occurred in the Church. During the Second Vatican Council, Cardinal B entered Martin's room, distraught and sweating anxiously, and told Father Martin that he had just heard the priest and theologian Hans Kahn say that, unlike the Protestant rebels of yesteryear, he and his group would stay within the Church and modify it from within. Father Martin also claimed to have read the Third Secret of Fatima during this time. At some point in 1960, he was traveling in a car with Cardinal B and John XXIII. During that trip, Pope John granted Father Martin to read the secret because he spoke fluent Portuguese. The secret was written on a single paper sheet, not four as the Vatican presented in 2000. On several subsequent occasions, Father Martin spoke about the third secret, even though he was under oath not to explicitly divulge its contents, but he cleverly evaded it. To fulfill the oath, when a person asked questions about the secret, he would answer whether that was in the secret or not. For example, during his last live interview in the 90s, on the Art Bell Show, Father Martin told millions of listeners that there is something terrible and horrifying in the third secret. He admitted that there would be another world war and a great disaster in which many people would die. And he made it clear that God would finally have to intervene with the 3 days of darkness, and that this was beyond anything imaginable. The most shocking thing was when a listener told Father Martin that he had heard from a priest who had claimed to have read the third secret that the last pope would be under Satan's control, and that when Pope John XXIII read this, he fainted, thinking it could be him. To which Father Martin responded, "Yes, that sounds like he had read the third secret." In 1997, Father Martin spoke more about that possibility, saying that we could have an apostate pope, and that if so, we would be in something terrible. We would be in a nightmare in which the faith of the people would be tested, in which the faith of the majority would be shattered to smithereens. He said that if this happens, the darkness kingdom would have the prize, and everything would have to go underground. Let's remember that in the apparitions of La Salette in 1846, Our Lady said that Rome would lose its faith. Melanie of La Salette apparitions explained that the church would be eclipsed and that, for a time, the holy sacrifice would no longer be offered in churches. But it would not disappear. It would be offered in caves, tunnels, barns, and houses. As disclosed by Malachi Martin, the third secret covers three main aspects. 1. A physical punishment to nations, which involves natural or man-made catastrophes. 2. A spiritual punishment that would be much more terrifying and distressing than physical difficulties, especially for Roman Catholics. It would consist of the disappearance of faith and a period of generalized infidelity in many countries. 3. That Russia is the regulator of Fatima's calendar. Russia's role is crucial in this period, because the cure for the world's ills will begin in Russia. That's why the Virgin Mary has actively spoken about Russia at Fatima. Salvation will come from that area, especially from Ukraine and Russia, which is extraordinary. In 1990, Father Martin said that what was spoken in the Third Secret of Fatima was already being fulfilled. The Church was amid an apostasy that was becoming widespread, and declared in 1997 that the vast majority of Catholics were in apostasy. More than 20 years ago, he said that a considerable minority of cardinals, bishops, priests, and religious were in apostasy. Even though they no longer professed the fundamental truths of Catholicism, they were in charge of the Church. He said that we are facing a self-demolition, and added something shocking, that in Rome, there is an immovable force that can't be removed by ordinary human means. That's why Jesus chose his mother to save the Catholic Church. Finally, he said that this terrible process could be avoided. It doesn't need to happen if two requests made by the Virgin Mary were granted. The first one is that whoever is the Pope publishes the entire text of the Third Secret so that everyone can read and know it. The second one is that the Pope, together with all his bishops acting collegially, consecrate Russia explicitly to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Malachi Martin also said that a powerful group had carried out a devil's consecration inside the Vatican. Later, exorcist Gabrielle Amorth said that it's perfectly credible and probable that this consecration took place. This is a topic for another video. Let us know in the comments if you would like to see it. Well, This is what we wanted to share with you about the revelations made by Father Malachi Martin. What he told more than 20 years ago is beginning to happen. Perhaps we should pray for what he suggested, that the Church publish the Third Secret of Fatima entirely, and that the Pope consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, in union with all the world's bishops, specifically naming Russia. And I would like to ask if you consider that there are already clear signs that the events that the Third Secret of Fatima would contain are happening now.